Hey everyone, and welcome back to Voyage. I bet a lot of you are wondering where my French level is at after 1 year of really taking my French seriously, also 1 year since I did my Lingoda super sprint, and since moving to France. I might make a future video on some of these subjects, but in today's video I wanted to talk about how I got to this point where I'm at now with my language learning, what it's been like for the past year, the good and the bad, as well as different things I learned along the way and my current struggles that I still have with French. I figured the simplest way to show you guys my French level is to actually speak French, right? So at the end of this video, I will talk a little bit in French with no script, nothing, just talk freely so you guys can get kind of an idea of where my level is at. So I'll give you a little bit of background on me. I started learning French in 2020 when I decided that I was going to eventually move to France. It started off very, very slow and it was hard to stay motivated. I didn't know what to study. There was a lot of material online, and also I didn't know anyone else that was learning a language or that had learned a language as an adult, so it was kind of hard to figure out what actually I was doing. Nowadays it's great. I have a lot of friends who are also learning French or who have learned a language, so we always love talking about language learning and all of the nuances with all of the different languages. So now it's great, but back then I really didn't know anyone that was really interested in languages, talking about languages, nothing. And my French was so bad that I couldn't even have a conversation, so it was kind of hard to learn when I didn't even have the basics, you know what I mean? So I kind of had to be my own cheerleader and motivator, and I feel like this can be the case for a lot of us, right? But I will give a shout out to my mum. If you're watching this, mum, hi. She did come to a few beginners French classes with me, but without proper direction, I was just learning random stuff. I think I was trying to memorize French conjugation tables before even being able to form a sentence, which, I mean, just doesn't make any sense. Obviously, I wasn't making much progress doing this, so I decided that I really needed to sign up for an actual course if I really did expect to be speaking French before I moved to France in a few months. And that's when I decided to sign up for a Lingoda super sprint, which was 3 months long, and funnily enough, it finished the day before I moved to France. I want to talk about Lingoda for a little bit because they're the only real course that I did, and I can't really not mention them if I'm talking about my French progress. For those of you who haven't heard about Lingoda, they are an online language school and they give subscription-based classes for English, German, Spanish, and French. But they are most widely known for their sprints, and if you don't know what their sprints are, it's basically a 2-month intensive where you have 1 class a day every single day, which is a 1-hour class, and if you attend every single class, you get a full refund. That's right, full refund. And I managed to successfully complete their super sprint for French, which really helped me improve my French, and I saved a lot of money. Their next sprint is on the 16th of April, but they're actually doing sprints every month at the moment, so it's pretty awesome. If you can't make it this one, you can make a future one. This is what the application actually looks like once you've signed up. So as you can see, I have my progress here, my booked classes. You can also change level at any time if you feel like it's either too easy or too hard for you. When you go into book classes, you have this huge array of filters, and I'm not sure if I mentioned it earlier, but Lingoda is 24/7, so that means that you can set the times to be any time in the world, any day, and you'll be able to find a class. And also you can access all of the material at any time. I can just click into a class, I can open the lesson material, and there it is. I can see what I'm going to cover in this class. They also have tests for you to do after the class so that you're able to test your knowledge on the subject. I really want to respond this, even though for those of you who want to try out their sprints, I'll leave a discount code in the description below, as well as one for those who just want to try out their regular subscriptions. Now that you guys have a bit of context and background on me, I wanted to talk about some of the things that I still struggle with to this day, even though it's been a little bit over a year. Even though you guys might not have the exact same experience as me when it comes to language learning, I hope this at least maybe gives you guys some expectations of where you could be at in a year's time with French or another language. The first thing I wanted to touch on is the pronunciation, and I feel like this is something that people don't think about that much because we're more worried about communicating, right? But I do think it's like that you actually have to put a decent amount of effort into to sound really, really French, if that's what your goal is. I think for an English person learning French, we're really, really lucky because we share so many of the same words, but at the same time, there is this trickiness with the pronunciation of the U in French and the R, so U and R. And just because I live in France now doesn't mean I'm speaking French 24/7. Yes, I speak French at work, but I'm currently working from home, so that kind of makes it a bit tricky, and I speak French when I'm out with friends. But aside from that, I still watch a lot of YouTube and TV shows in English, and I speak obviously with my family in English, so It's kind of tricky. Even though my boyfriend is French, we do mostly speak English, although we are trying to speak more French because it just is the language that we naturally go to. And I think this is pretty common for bilingual couples. You have one language that you speak in most of the time. I don't know if this is for everyone, but sometimes I almost feel like laughing if I'm trying to do a really, really strong French accent because I feel like I can tell I'm just putting it on so much. But I really need to stop thinking of it like that. The next one, and I bet this is the same for a lot of you guys, is the masculine and feminine in French. And I kind of have just accepted the fact that I will never learn exactly all of the masculine and feminine. It's just impossible. Even French people make mistakes sometimes. So for foreigners trying to learn French, obviously, like, we're not superhuman. I sometimes hear French people even kind of say something like this. Le, la, les, l'arbre j'ai vu hier. And like kind of cycle through the different options before they say the correct masculine, feminine, or whatever it is. I think the best thing to do actually is ask people to correct you, because a lot of the time they won't want to because it seems kind of impolite, but at the same time you need to learn or else you'll just keep saying it wrong. Also, a little tip, and this isn't 100% the case, but if a word ends in an E, a lot of the time that is feminine. So if I have absolutely no idea if the word I want to say is masculine or feminine, I kind of just think if it has an E on the end, I'll use feminine. If not, masculine. For example, chien, chienne, une chaise, un vélo, une table, une lampe, une carte. See, a lot of them end with an E. Un plat, un dessert, un bus. So as you can see, a lot of the ones with an E on the end are feminine. The next thing, for us English speakers, French does sound really, really formal. And this goes all the way back to this French king that ruled over England for a while, but I will not get into it. And French people are also, I feel like, more direct. And this has kind of confused me a few times. I remember one time I was on call with the bank and I was asking if I could open a new bank account or something like that. And they just kept saying to me, bah ouais. And I thought they were being sarcastic or something like that. And I feel like this is pretty direct. I feel like if this was an Australian bank, they'd be like, yes, of course, ma'am, how can I help you? Or something like that. Another time we were in a clothing store and I asked the lady if she had a shirt in a certain size, and she was like to me, no. And I said, are you sure? And she told me, what did I just say? Again, I feel like if this was Australia or maybe America, I don't know, they would be like, oh yes, let me just look on the computer, and pretend to look on the computer to be maybe like fake polite and then tell you again, no. But at the same time, I feel like this directness can be quite nice. There's usually not a lot of fakeness and people generally say what they feel and say what they mean. One thing that I really, really struggle with, and I think this is because I speak French mostly with my friends and my colleagues, is a lot of the time I accidentally use tu instead of vous. And this happens all the time. Please let me know in the comments if this happens with you guys too. But for example, someone might say bonjour, ça va? And I will say ça va, toi? And it just is a natural reflex. Even the other day I was talking to a delivery driver and I was like, t'es déjà là? And then I'm immediately after like, vous êtes là? I feel like this has to be the most obvious way to show you're not French. I quickly want to mention a few things that I struggle with French grammar, and I say quickly because I know none of us want to think about French grammar for too long, right? Well, at least not any more time than what's necessary. Sometimes I still get confused using passé composé and imparfait. It is what it is. One thing that I struggle a lot with is when to use a and de. For example, à comprendre, de comprendre, and things like that. And the last thing is the subjunctive. Oula. Why is it j'espère que tu fais et je veux que tu fasses? These are the questions, guys, we'll never have the answer to. So like me, you'll just have to learn it. Luckily, French people will still understand you even if you make this mistake. And usually when I make this mistake, I know immediately after because it doesn't sound right. And I usually try to correct myself immediately after. Now I want to talk about the advantages and disadvantages of learning French. So this should be an interesting one. Big advantage number one, and this is pretty obvious, is I get to live in another country, speak another language, meet a whole new other group of people, work in another language, immerse myself in a new culture and style of life. Big advantage number two is it has genuinely changed my thought pattern. Like the way I think about things now is different. I have multiple ways to make a joke. There are words that exist in French that don't exist in English or vice versa. It's like with every language you learn, you kind of open a window and you can look out and see things in a whole different kind of way. And I'm sure people who have learned a language before probably think the same as me. Now onto the disadvantages, and before you guys say, hey, there's obviously more advantages than that. Like I said earlier, I'll probably make a separate video talking about advantages, disadvantages of language learning and things like that. So for now, I'll talk about the main ones that I have noticed in the past year. The main disadvantage, number one, and I would say this is probably the main reason that most people don't learn another language, and that is that it takes a lot of time and dedication. Language learning is the type of thing that doesn't give you results overnight, so it's really hard to stay motivated and really prioritize it. But if it was easy, everyone would just be bilingual, wouldn't they? Another disadvantage, and I feel like this one's pretty funny, is my English has gotten worse. Can you believe it? I think it's mostly due to two main reasons. The first one being I hear a lot of people, especially my boyfriend, make mistakes in English, and I kind of copy these mistakes or these words that don't exist in English just because I talk to him and these other people so much. For example, I was saying works when I really mean renovations. Sometimes now I'll even say the word that when I really want to say the word this. And I think the second reason is sometimes for some reason I use French sentence structure in English. I don't know why. But I feel like this can't be that uncommon with language learning, but let me know in the comments if this happens to you guys too. And this last one, I don't know if you would call it a disadvantage, but I want to learn all the languages now. I want to learn how to say certain words in German, Spanish, or like, hey, Korean sounds cool, so why don't we learn the Korean alphabet tonight? When I should really be working on my French, but procrastination works in mysterious ways. So overall, looking back on the past year or a little bit over a year, I'm so happy I decided to learn a language because it's given so many opportunities. I can highly recommend it, and it's one of the best decisions I've ever made. Aside from the opportunities, I just genuinely enjoy speaking French. It's challenging, obviously, to learn a new language, and seeing yourself improve is kind of like motivating. It's fun to get out of your comfort zone and meet new people. For the future, I definitely plan on trying to improve my French. One day I hope to be fluent, and maybe I will learn a few bits and pieces of other languages along the way, like Spanish, German, and Korean, like I mentioned before. Another thought that I've kind of come to the conclusion to is that I don't think that you actually need to live in the country of the language that you're trying to learn. I think that you can actually learn a language from abroad, but you might just not learn the informal way of speech, for example. Alors maintenant, je vais parler en français. J'ai essayé de parler librement avant, mais c'était trop difficile. Alors j'ai Quentin avec moi ici et il va me poser des questions alors que je peux montrer mon vrai niveau de français. Alors, quand t'es prêt, vas-y.
Qu'est-ce que tu ferais différemment si c'était à refaire?
Le français, l'apprentissage de français. Probablement trouver des amis qui aiment aussi l'apprentissage de langue. Parce qu'en Australie, c'était difficile sans les autres personnes qui aiment ça. Tu vois? C'était la bonne réponse.
Il n'y a pas de mauvaise réponse.
Mm-hmm.
Qu'est-ce que tu préfères en France comparé à l'Australie?
Rien. Non, je rigole. La boulangerie, bien sûr. Les gens sont sympas. Quoi d'autre? J'aime qu'on a 2 heures de déjeuner.
Le midi.
La midi. Oui. Oh, et aussi les châteaux. Parce que ça n'existe pas en Australie, évidemment.
Qu'est-ce qui t'a marqué le plus quand t'es arrivé en France?
Que les stéréotypes sont plutôt vrais, parce que j'ai regardé un mec dans la rue avec une baguette, un clope, et en train de fumer un clope.
Quelque chose qui t'a vraiment surprise?
Ouais, c'est ça. C'était quand tu regardes la télé en France, sais-tu les shows américains
qui sont
doublés. Ouais, c'est ça. Ça, c'est bizarre parce que t'es en France, alors je pense, ok, je vais regarder des films en français, mais non, c'est pas vrai.
Ok, prochaine question. Est-ce qu'il y a eu des moments gênants en situation sociale?
Situation sociale. Peut-être ma première journée au boulot en français.
Il s'est passé quoi?
C'était juste un peu difficile pour moi. C'était la première fois que j'étais dans une grande groupe avec plus que 2 personnes qui ont parlé en même temps. Et en français, bien sûr. Et c'était un peu difficile de suivre la conversation pour moi. Maintenant, ça va, mais avant, c'était dur. Et je vais essayer de faire le moins edit possible, mais j'ai pas beaucoup de batterie, alors désolé si il coupe un peu.
Alors, est-ce que tu trouves qu'il y a des avantages à vivre en France par rapport à l'Australie?
La chose que j'aime le plus en France, ou pour vivre en France ou en Europe, c'est que c'est très facile à voyager en Europe. C'est
La
par exemple,
proximité.
ouais, par exemple pour nous c'est 3 heures par voiture pour être en Angleterre.
Oui, depuis la France.
Ouais,
En
depuis
Australie, c'est des
depuis
heures
la
d'avion
Normandie.
pour,
4
changer de
heures,
pays.
non, 24 heures pour aller en France. La dernière question.
Ok, les supermarchés en France versus en Australie.
Ok, je sais que tout le monde pense que la France, ils ont le meilleur plat du monde, mais c'est pas nécessairement vrai. Moi, j'aime les plats en Australie, ou la cuisine en Australie. Avec les supermarchés en France, ils ont beaucoup d'îles. Tu dis île en français aussi pour aisle.
Beaucoup d'allées.
D'aller. Oh, c'est la première fois que j'ai posé cette question. Oui, il y a beaucoup d'allées pour le fromage et le yogurt. Tu vois? Et moi, je mange pas trop de ça. Alors, c'est un peu bizarre.
Donc, trop de produits inutiles.
Ouais, tu pourrais dire ça, ouais. Ok, c'est fini. Bon, merci beaucoup, monsieur Spadon, pour m'aider là. Merci d'avoir regardé. Et le mot de la fin, c'est si tu veux apprendre une langue, tu peux. Alors voilà, ça c'est mon niveau en français. J'espère que c'était utile pour vous. Et ouais, c'est tout. I post regular language learning and travel videos, so if that's something that you're interested in, give this video a like and subscribe to my channel. Like I mentioned earlier, for those of you who do want to try the Lingoda Sprint, I left a discount code in the description, as well as one for people who just want to try their regular subscription. Lastly, thanks for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.